Good morning, dear students. Hope you're all doing good. Before starting watching the video, kindly mark your attendance in the comment section. I still do not see some of the students marking their attendance. I really don't want to take names here, but please positively just mark your attendance so that I know who all are watching the video. I hope we are all on the same page. I hope all the notes in the register are complete. Please do not lag behind. Okay, so I think we are good to go. In the last class, we had started about educational sector in India. Mainly, we will be seeing everything from the government's expenditure point of view. What progress educational sector in India has made if we look at government's expenditure, and we talked about two things. That is, we talked about growth in government expenditure on education from two ways actually, as a percentage of total government expenditure and as a percentage of GDP. Yeah. Okay. Expenditure by the government is expressed in two ways as a percentage of total government expenditure. This was already covered in the last class that during 52 to 2014 it increased to 15.7%, and as a percentage of country's total GDP we have 4.13% of expenditure on education if we see only the government's expenditure. However, the total expenditure by both private and philanthropic institutions, if we include, then it should be much more higher. Okay, let's take the topic further. The next is the thing we are going to look into is what are the various areas where government spends the most, and like the important points about government expenditure. First thing to note is actually government is spending more on elementary education, that is class 1 to 8. If I tell you the reason, this is basically to increase because the aim is to achieve 100% literacy. Actually, the aim right now is to attain 100% literacy, and you are a literate if you're able to read and write up to in one language clearly, if you're able to understand a sentence, read a sentence, write a sentence in any one language clearly. And it got, obviously everyone believes that till class 8 a person is a student is able to read and write in any one language very much clearly. That is why right now government is spending most on elementary education. The elementary includes both primary as well as middle school education, that is up to 8th. Primary would be up to 5th and middle school would be 6th to 8th. So out of the total share of government's share in education, elementary education takes a major share of total education expenditure. However, share of higher or tertiary education. Tertiary is again the higher education, any education which we do after completion of class 12, that is after school, be it some college, be it some university or any polytechnic course. Here the government is spending the least share. Okay, but important point is government should not be ignoring the expenditure on tertiary education. See, share of the expenditure per student is more on tertiary education actually than elementary education. Why so? Because although the amount spent on elementary education is more, but the number of children getting education in elementary education is also much more as compared to number of students achieving tertiary education. So because number of students achieving tertiary education is less, expenditure per student becomes greater because the denominator is less. The number of students are less, so per student expenditure is greater on tertiary education, which is any education after your class 12th. But this does not mean that resources should be transferred from tertiary to elementary sector. That does not mean that. In fact, government needs to encourage its class of students and everybody in the country that they should go for higher education. That only increases the stock of human capital in the country, which we can make use of later. So it is important that we expand tertiary education also. Okay, so we need to invest more in elementary as well as tertiary education with time, as more trained teachers will be required. expenditure on all levels of education actually should be increased. Okay. Moreover, there are state disparities because I told you education is a concurrent subject. Both state level ministers as well as central government spend on education. So there is an inequality in educational expenditure. Per capita educational expenditure differs considerably across different states in India. Okay, it is as high as 34,651 per capita per person in Himachal Pradesh, and it is as low as 4,088 rupees per person in Bihar. This is annual expenditure, I think, per capita education expenditure. I think this is not annual, but across their education tenure this is distributed. So yes, this is on per person in Bihar. Government is on an average spending 4,000 rupees on a person's education, on a child's elementary education throughout up to class 8. This much amount is spent, as compared to Himachal Pradesh, where 34,651 rupees are spent by the government on a person's elementary education. So state disparities are also there. This leads to difference in educational opportunities across states. Let us see this in the book. Hmm, yeah. Okay, so we were discussing these important points about government expenditure. First point that we discussed was government spends more on elementary education. You can go through the point. Anything tertiary education includes any higher learning like colleges, polytechnics, and universities. Then expenditure on tertiary education is important. However, expenditure per student in tertiary education is higher than that of elementary education. Why I have written here? Because number of students in tertiary education is less. So that does not mean that financial resources should be transferred. As we expand school education, we need more teachers who are trained in the higher educational institutions also. So in fact, government needs to increase levels of expenditure on all levels. Difference in educational opportunities across states already discussed in 2014-15. Per capita expenditure uh, in education was as high as 34,000 approximately in Himachal and 4,088 in Bihar. So this also leads to differences in educational opportunities and attainment across states. Obviously, if this much, can you see the difference? 34,000 on a person is spent in a state, and in the same country 4,000 is spent in another state. So obviously there will be differences in educational opportunities, there will be differences in quality, there will be differences in what type of education you receive in your entire elementary educational tenure. So all this shows that we are making inadequate expenditure on education. The expenditure on education is very less as compared to the desired level. The desired level is 6%. Yesterday also I told you, more than 40 years ago, the Education Commission had recommended at least 6% of GDP should be spent on education by the government. But this current expenditure is little over 4%, which is right now 4.6%. This is quite inadequate. Okay, so this was the conclusion to that important points about government expenditure. So anything if it is asked what is the growth of educational expenditure in India, so all these points you will be writing, making this every answer in Indian economy will have the major heading, the subheadings of the points, the explanation of those points, what is important in that explanation. Like you can highlight important words in the explanation, like elementary takes a major share of total education expenditure, like all that. And then you need to conclude your answer with a conclusion, like it can be here that the current expenditure on education is very less as compared to the desired level, which is 6% as recommended by Education Commission in 1964 to 66. Okay, provision of free and compulsory education, we all are aware of this, that it is, I think, 83rd amendment in the constitution, which made which made education a free and compulsory and a fundamental right for every citizen in the country, that up to class 8, in the age group of this, you should be knowing, the age group of 6 to 14 years, all children should be brought under the purview of school education, that is under the ambit of school education, that is under this arena, under the arena of school education. Okay, this committee was appointed by the government, Tapas Majumdar Committee. It was appointed by the government in 1998, and the aim of the committee was, the purpose to appoint this committee was to look into the financial implications, like how much expenditure do we need to fulfill this objective of providing free and compulsory education of to all the children up to 6 to from 6 to 14 years of age. So the committee estimated that an expenditure of 1.37 lakh crores over 10 years, that is 99 to 2007, till from 98 to 2007, will be required to bring all Indian children in the age group of 6 to 14 years under the purview of school education. So this was estimated by Tapas Majumdar Committee. You should be knowing the name of the committee. The aim was of the committee was to find the financial implications of this law, which Indian government had made, that we are going to provide free and compulsory education to the children of 6 to 14 years of age. And the committee estimated an expenditure of 1.37 lakh crores by the government over 10 years of time span. Okay, so in 2009, these numbers, these years are important. This amount is important. This year is important. This age group is important. Like if it can be written in the question, 4 to 12 years of age, it can be as an MCQ also, and students usually get confused because the answers are so similar to each other. So the exact age is 6 to 14 years of age. In 2009, the Government of India enacted the Right to Education Act to make free education a fundamental right of all children in the age group of 6 to 14 years. So apart from all those fundamental rights which we have been learning in our book of political science for all these classes, this educational right to education was added later only in 2009 as a fundamental right. That is the most basic and important right from which everything else comes. In the age group of 6 to 14 years, we will make education free and compulsory. Government of India has also started levying a 2% education cess. Okay, there is a difference between tax and cess. Tax, the money collected from tax can be used for any purpose. If I'm collecting some service tax from you at a rate of 5%, let us suppose, so that I can use anywhere. That amount I can use to pay salaries to the to the employees working in Indian government companies. But cess, whatever word is associated with cess, the money will be utilized for that purpose only. If 2% education cess was started on all union taxes, now the money received from this imposition of education cess cannot be spent anywhere else. It has to be allocated to the upliftment of educational sector in our country. Okay, so that's what a difference between cess and tax. I would have not told you had we there been in the class interacting personally. I would have definitely asked you this, but it's okay. Okay, the revenues from education cess has been earmarked for spending on elementary education actually. So that is why government spends most on elementary education, because all the revenue derived from education cess, that is a 2% education cess on all union taxes is there. All that money is used for elementary education, because obviously when it is made a fundamental right, now we need funds for that. Funds are needed to make people to provide people this service which we have decided to provide for free. So that is why. Okay, next, in addition to this amount, the government sanctioned a large outlay, that is expenditure amount, for the promotion of higher education and new loan schemes. If you know, government comes up with very friendly educational loans now. In fact, subsidies are also provided, and banks are providing it at less interest rates, these educational loans. Also, you people are exempted from starting paying their EMIs unless and until they get a job. Actually, like if you have taken a loan for your MBA and that MBA is 2 years, so up to 2 years you don't have to pay any installment, and you're also given us a time period of 1 year, or um your job procurement, whichever is earlier. Whether if you receive a job in less than a year after completion of your MBA, you can start with your EMI. Otherwise, the bank can wait for 1 year for you to receive your job, to get a job, and then start paying the EMIs. So that is why government has again, sanctioned a nice amount for the promotion of higher education in the country, and new loan schemes for students who are willing to pursue higher education. Okay, this says that for various primary education schemes initiated by the government, refer your power booster section, which is not there in the syllabus. You can still read if um, for your extra knowledge. This image you can see here: school dropouts, they give way to child labor, which is a serious loss to human capital. Obviously, this loss we cannot underestimate. This is why actually India is lagging behind. That people are not, children of this age, group 6 to 14 years, they are not, you will not find a lot of such children in school, but roaming on the streets and doing some other sort of child labor. This is also a very nice topic for your project. Last year one student made a project on child labor, and that was brilliant. So you can also choose this topic as your project. Project topic should be anything which gives you some additional knowledge apart from what you have been studying in your book. So this was all about government expenditure on education, important points. Inadequate expenditure on education. Why we have inadequate expenditure? Because 6% is the target and we are spending 4.6%. And this was the set estimation. This was the estimated amount we need to spend. And okay, how does government make education, the right to education act, a fundamental right? All these steps were taken by the government. This is all important. This is how you have to combine the answer for 6 marks. That is the question could be, just discuss the growth of educational sector in India, throw some light on the growth of educational sector in India. Okay, next is educational achievements in India. Generally, educational achievements in a country are indicated in terms of adult literacy level. You should be knowing what are the three indicators of educational achievements. Write the question here. This can be name three indicators of educational achievements in India. So the three indicators will be adult literacy rate, primary education completion rate, and youth literacy rate. Name three indicators of, and then this heading. Okay. So the three indicators in which we can see how much progress we have made in education, those are the indicators. So those three indicators are, if we see at adult literacy rate, the numbers, primary education completion rate, that is up to 5th, we'll come to the meaning, and youth literacy rate. Okay, educational attainments in India. Adult literacy rate is percentage of people aged 15 plus. It is, if you see here, the rate refers to the ratio of the literate adult population to the total adult population in the country. So in the numerator we have literate adult population divided by total adult population into 100, because we are converting into percentage. So see, in case of males, the adult literacy rate increased from 61.9% in 1990 to 81% in 2015 in terms of males. In case of males. In case of females, if we talk about 1990, only 38% approximately females were literate in India in 1990, and now in 2015 this rate is 63%. So that is why we have an average literacy rate of around 74% in the country now. Okay, primary completion rate. This is primary completion. Okay, this is still far below the satisfaction level and all. Primary completion rate is what? It is the percentage of students completing the last year of primary school. How many students complete the last year of primary school? That is, complete the fifth class. Like, many of them would be dropping out after their second class or third class or fourth class also. But what is the percentage which complete the total primary education? In case of males, it increased from 78% in 1990 to 94%. This is a significant achievement. And in case of females, 61% females only used to complete their primary education in 1990, but now it is 99% females which complete their education. That is even higher than males, if you see. That is, they all complete their education, primary education. Next is youth literacy rate. Youth literacy rate is the percentage of people aged 15 to 24. Okay, there is a difference in adult literacy rate and youth literacy rate. In adult literacy rate, we have the entire adult population, starting from, I think, above 18 up to whatever age, up to 60 years of age. That would be the adult population of the country. So in youth literacy rate, we have only people aged 15 to 24. So in the numerator, we will have people who are literate in this age, and in the denominator we will have total number of people in this particular age group. So who can with understanding read and write a short simple sentence on their everyday life. That is when you are called literate. If in this age group, obviously all you people are literate. But then literacy does not mean that all of us are nicely educated. Okay, it is the percentage of people aged 15 to 24 who can with understanding read and write a short simple statement on their daily life. In case of males, there was marginal increase in the youth literacy rate from 76.6% to 92%. That is, 92% of people in this age group are literate in our country, males only. And as compared to, if we compare it to females, it is 81%. 81% females are literate in the age group of 15 to 24. Just imagine, only 80, still 13% females of our country. That is a huge number. 13% female population of our country is a huge number. In this age group of 15 to 24, they cannot understand, read or write a short simple statement on their daily life. These parameters are so basic that all these percentages should be actually 100, because this is just about literacy. This is just about elementary level of education. Literacy is all about elementary level of education, and still we have not achieved any 100 anywhere all over these years. But still, okay, we are close to it. That's our aim, and I'm sure India is going to declare itself 100% literate very soon. Okay, just concluding the topic of educational sector with its future prospects. What are the potentials in India's educational sector? If we see, education for all, still a distant dream, but I think we all should be hopeful. We all should realize the importance of education, and we should not keep it as a distant dream, but as an achievable dream which India can achieve very soon. The literacy rate for both adults as well as youths have increased. Okay, this is the conclusion of what we have studied. However, the absolute number of illiterates, that is what I'm telling you, the 13% of female population in the age group of 15 to 24 would be such a big number. Keeping in mind India's population, that number would be so big. So the absolute number of illiterates is still as much as India's population at the time of independence. Just imagine. In 1950, it was noted in the directives of the Constitution that the government should provide free and compulsory education for all children up to the age of 14 years. Okay, that time it was not made as a right. It was just noted in the directives of the Constitution. So it took all these years to the government to finally include it in the Constitution as a fundamental right. So from 1950 till 2009, it took 59 years to the government to realize the importance of education and make it a fundamental right for everyone. Just imagine. But had we done this before, had we done this in 1950, we would have definitely achieved 100% literacy by now. But India did it in 2009. Okay, so we all are waiting. We all are giving it time to achieve 100% literacy rate. And yes, I'm sure we all will achieve if we are all hopeful about it. And then we would definitely call us a 100% literate nation. And that would be such a different, scenario from what it is right now. Just imagine, just try to think about that. Okay, gender equity is better than before. Yes, the difference in literacy rates are narrowing in our country because females are also realizing the importance of education, and parents also provide education to their female child. It is no more like male child is getting education and female child is lagging behind. In fact, all these years in CBSE results, if we see, it is the females who are taking over the males in terms of results. So yes, the difference in literacy rates are narrowing. It indicates a positive development in gender equity. However, women education still needs to be promoted. Basically, in rural areas, it still needs to be promoted. Why? To improve economic independence and social status of women. I completely agree to this. Whenever a woman is educated, she has her own sense of dignity. Society respects her. Her social status increases. That is, the status in the society increases, and she has her economic independence. She does not have to depend on a male member in the family for her financial needs. Obviously, I do not have to ask for my financial needs from my husband. And that is the right thing because my husband doesn't ask for his financial needs from me. So that's how it should go. We all can, handle our financial expenditures on our own. Why should we need to ask? Contribution is a different thing. Sharing is a different thing. Gifting each other is a different thing. But then you should be able to take care of your own finances. And all the girls who are listening to this, just make yourself that much educated that you never, have to depend for a single penny on the male member in the family. Then you will be, called educated, and that will not only give you financial independence, it is actually going to give you your dignity, your status in the society. Then you will be truly called independent. Financial independence is a subset of the total independence we achieve in life. Actually, you will have emotional independence, you will have the right to say in the family, and a lot of other things. You will realize that. Okay, so women education makes a favorable impact on fertility rate as well. Fertility rate is number of children born per woman. So that can be, I think in India it is around, it is greater than 3. Obviously it is something about 3 point average rate, because obviously there cannot be 3.2 children born per woman, so it is an average rate only. So whenever women are educated, so they realize, that is what we were doing, we were discussing in the beginning also. If we have smaller families when we are educated, because we know that it takes burden on the planet as well, so we should not be going for bigger families. So this education makes us realize the importance of number of people in the family also. So it makes a favorable impact on fertility rate. Favorable impact on fertility rate means fertility rate will fall, it will not rise. And healthcare of women also improves, and children both in the family. So we cannot be satisfied about the upward movement in the literacy rate until 100% literacy rate is achieved. Yes, it should be the case. Why to be satisfied, that India is now 74% literate now. Earlier it was just 32%. So why we should be having enough satisfaction out of it? We should keep our feet up, moving, and work towards achieving 100% literacy rate. So this was all about education. Mainly we have discussed about elementary education, future prospects and all. You should be knowing, you should be writing all this. All these are to be written in the form of notes. Make your own notes, give your own headings. If you find any other heading suitable for yourself, and just not what is given in the book, you can create your own headings. I have no problem with that. But just make good complete notes of if that you're able to write about educational sector of India for a good 6 mark answer. Okay, yeah. Finally, concluding with higher education, a few takers. Yeah, let me just complete the chapter in this video. I'll take very less time, very little time. Okay, higher education, a few takers. This we have discussed a little. Less people are going towards higher education. Indian education pyramid is steep. It is steep means pyramid is that triangular shape thing. So it means more people are there in the like basic level, elementary level, and very less people are going towards higher education. That is why it is steep, indicating lesser and lesser number of people reaching the higher education level. Still, please see, let me know what is the percentage of tertiary education completion in of India. How many people actually go for higher education after 12th? Let me know the percentage in the comment section. I would really like to know how many of you have actually searched for it. Please write it down. Give another comment and let me know what is the percentage of people who are going for higher education after their after completing their 12th in India, and then you will realize how much few it is. What does this then you'll be able to define this few for yourself. So you people are all lucky, who are able to go complete your education after class 12th and add to your stock of skills and knowledge. As per NSSO data, National Sample Survey Organization, which collects data on social and economic issues in the country, in the year 2011 and 11 to 12, the rate of unemployment rate among youth males who studied graduation and above in rural areas was 19%. The same rate for urban counterparts was at 16%, had relatively less level of unemployment at 16%, and the most severely affected ones were young rural female graduates, as nearly 30% of them were unemployed. Just imagine. We are talking about the graduates here, the ones who lived in rural areas and males. The unemployment rate among them was 19%. The rural, so the urban male graduate who were unemployed in 2011 to 12, this rate was 16%. And if we talk about females, 30% of them are unemployed. See, many of our mothers and all, they must be graduates and all, but they are serving as you know household parent house, they are housewives basically. So they are a part of this 30%, but actually we don't call them unemployed. We only call a person unemployed when the person is willing and able to do work, like the person is looking for work. But if they are not looking for work, then they are not counted in that 30% actually. Okay, in contrast to this, only 3 to 6% of primary level educated youth in rural and urban areas were unemployed. Can you imagine? I told you this in the previous video also, I think last to last video, that unemployment among educated people is more as compared to uneducated people, because the people who complete their primary education, no, they will take any manual unskilled job. They just need some job. They will not wait for some right opportunity to grab the job. They will do any work provided to them because they are just primary level educated youth. Okay, so among them the people who are unemployed is just 3 to 6%. So that is why we need more skilled and more knowledgeable level of education in at higher level, and not just for spending 3 years and getting a degree. It should give you some skills. This is the conclusion, very important. Therefore, the government needs to increase allocation for higher education and also improve the standard of higher education institutions. This is what I'm talking about. So that students are imparted employable skills in such institutions. Like whenever they leave the institution, they are able to get themselves employed. Employable skills should be imparted. Employable skills means you should have those skills which help you get employment. So you can read this conclusion. The economic benefits and social benefits of human capital formation and human development are well known by now. I hope you all realize the importance of human capital formation in the country. The union and state governments, they have been allocating substantial amount for development of education and health sectors. Obviously, you cannot deny that. The spread of education and health services across different sectors of a society should be ensured so as to simultaneously attain economic growth and equity. India has a rich stock of scientific and technical manpower in the world. We need to please use this line in any of your answers in this chapter. This is very good line. India has a rich stock of scientific and technical manpower in the world. We need to improve it qualitatively actually, and provide such conditions so that they are utilized in our own country and not just for other country. These skills should be utilized. Okay, so we have such eminent Indian professors teaching in foreign universities. Just imagine if they had been teaching here, then the quality of people to those who are, they are teaching would have been so amazing, would have been so much better as compared to what their quality is right now. So that's all for the chapter. I think I will be taking some questions, general questions in the next class relating to the chapter. Please revise everything. Thank you so much for giving me some extra time for this class. Thank you so much for being patient enough to listen to everything. I hope you all listened to it. Complete your notes of the chapter. I'll see you in the next class. Till then, take very good care of yourself. God bless you all. Thank you so much again.